Moonshine Jesus, baby, alright. Moonshine Jesus, a surprising delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show, brought to you by ProgressiveChristianity.org, your favorite place to get all your progressive Christian resources. I'm here today with my good buddy, Mark. How you doing today, Mark?
Doing great today, Caleb. Happy to be reviewing our second viewing of Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's right. Yes, we did this, a couple of months ago. We looked at just the first couple episodes of Dropped, and both because we thought it would be cool to come back at the end of the season, and because we're both like Star Wars geeks, we thought, hey,
exactly right.
It'll be fun to come back and do this. Yeah. And Mark, it's good to be back with you in this format because it's been maybe 3 weeks since we've done it like this. We were live and in person at Wild Goose, and that was so much fun, wasn't it, Mark?
It was so much fun, and it was so, I don't know, there was even more energy when we were actually sitting in person together and not sitting on opposite coasts of the United States, you know? There's a lot of energy there. That was great.
Yeah. A very old-fashioned idea, you know, doing something in person, seeing each other face-to-face. It was crazy. So, but it's good to be back like this as well. Absolutely. And so one of our traditions here is having a themed cocktail. And Mark, I want to see what you're drinking today for Obi-Wan.
Well, you know, I did the same thing that I did the last time we repeated something we were looking at. I'm repeating my drink, but I'm changing it just the tiniest bit. So the last time I did a salute to General Akbar, and I did It's a Trap, which was 4 parts bourbon, 2 parts absinthe, and a little bit of sugar, a little bit of water. This time, since this was the ending of the entire season and maybe series, I'm calling it It's a Wrap. And I've added a little extra absinthe so that when I'm done with this drink, I'll be wrapped. So it's a wrap right here.
It's a wrap. I love that. That's nothing like the green.
What'd you go with?
Wrap it up. Okay, so I decided to duplicate my drink as well.
Very nice.
I didn't even change it. I just kept it exactly the same because I liked Obi-Wan's lightsaber. That's what I've got right here. Yeah, it's 2 ounces of blue curacao, 3 ounces of blue Kool-Aid, and an ounce of vodka. So it's very nice. Blue. Yes, and it's going to get me all sugared up. And I'm ready to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And when we do, we need to make sure everyone realizes there be spoilers ahead. This is not a place to go if you're trying to avoid spoilers. I imagine we're going to go deep into the spoilers today.
We're going to. But you know what? Cheers to spoilers, Mark.
Hey,
and cheers to you.
Cheers to you. It's a great show, man.
Is it?
I liked it the last time. I like it. It's a little more medicinal.
How are you going to get wrapped?
That extra absinthe really throws the taste off a little bit, but it's all right. It's not bad. Yeah, it's got bourbon in it. I'm going to like it. So,
yeah, of course you will. Okay, hey, let's listen to a drop and come back.
Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're glad you're here with us. So this is our second show on Obi-Wan Kenobi. We watched the first 2 episodes. We did a show on it, and we had several questions about what was going on and what might happen. Yeah. And we kind of just agreed we should go back and revisit this. But for those who aren't familiar with the Obi-Wan Kenobi series on Disney, here's a quick little recap of what the show is about. I stole most of this from Wikipedia. 10 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith, in which the Jedi were destroyed by Order 66, and Obi-Wan Kenobi's apprentice, Anakin Skywalker, became the Sith Lord Darth Vader, Kenobi is hiding on the planet Tatooine, watching over Anakin's son Luke, when he's called on a mission to rescue Anakin's daughter Leia after she's kidnapped by the Galactic Empire's Jedi hunting Inquisitors in a plot to draw Kenobi out. And it all ultimately leads to a confrontation between Kenobi and Vader, who, of course, was once Anakin. And I don't want to, I'll let our talk give away, more of the other spoilers from that, but that's kind of the general setup. And when we watched the first 2 episodes, you and I had several questions and kind of trying to guess where things were going. And so how did you feel like the show played out, and were there any particular answers we got that you were surprised at, or that you were like, oh, well, I was right about that, or those kinds of things?
I had a moment where I thought, oh, Mark was right about that. And so one of the things I think we talked about, as I often do.
Oh, yeah.
And it's one of those things like, I should listen to Mark about that. He's probably right. So one of the things that you said was about Reva, the Inquisitor, and you said, I think she's one of the younglings, and I think she survived. And so that's one of the things that we find out, is that she is one of the younglings, and we had only seen her, I think they'd kind of hinted at it, but we weren't sure, and we'd seen her use the Force a little bit, and we got to find out that that's what was driving her. And so I thought that was interesting to connect the prequels to this time period,
and in a lot of ways
interesting.
In a lot of ways, that played into one of the things you were right about, because we were asking the question, how does Reva know
Thank you.
Vader?
I want to hear about it.
Right. Well, we were asking the question, how does Reva know Vader? Because so few people know who Vader is.
Right.
And so few people did at that point. And you mentioned that you really felt strongly that she was probably his apprentice. After the first 2 episodes, we didn't really know that. And it turned out that that's exactly right, that because of the Jedi Academy, and she ends up being his apprentice. And she really, though, we get revealed that she's not really wanting to be his apprentice as much as she has this deep hatred for him, and she's looking for her opportunity to take Vader out.
Yeah. And so it was interesting when that was revealed, because I didn't really see that coming, and that was kind of a surprise to me. And so it's at this this very emotional point whenever Obi-Wan and this whole community of folks who have been trafficking the Jedis, that they're trapped, and we find out that yes, she is actually gunning for Vader. And so I had a question about this, Mark. So she's not able in that, I think the next episode, she's not able to actually get her revenge on Anakin. She wants to, and she sees that he has a son, and that's on Tatooine. Why do you think she goes after the son to get vengeance on Vader? What do you think that's about?
Well, I'm not completely sure. I think it's one of 2 things. I think either she thought that if she could bring his son back, or at first at least that had to be one of the thoughts, is maybe I can get close to him again. But also I think maybe there was this bit of revenge of, if I can't kill him, I'll kill his son. And make sure he knows that I was the one who did it, kind of thing. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, what did you think was going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was one of the more powerful scenes, because whenever I saw that, I at first I was like, okay, so it didn't actually explicitly say, like, this is Anakin's son. It said, the child's on Tatooine. I'm like, well, how does it's a bit of a leap in logic to figure out that that's Anakin's son. How does she know that? But she goes, and I think it's ultimately powerful that she sees herself becoming Anakin, and has a change, and is able to stop herself and not give in to the dark side of the Force. So, I mean, that's the thing that I love about Star Wars, right?
I love it. And that was one of the things. Yeah. And that's one of the things you and I talked about early on. I was like, I'm wondering if Reva is going to turn to the light side, if there's any chance. And there were just a couple of moments where she didn't kill someone where if she was really an inquisitor, she would have killed somebody. They made you go, okay, they're nuancing this character here a little bit. So what are they going to do with her? But I'm with you. I thought I didn't see the way they did it. I didn't see that coming. It was brilliant and beautiful where, Anakin basically comes after her, and I think he hits her with the lightsaber, but she gets okay. She's okay ultimately, but she is about to take out Luke, and she sees herself. She recognizes that she's becoming the monster that she's hunting, and it was just a beautiful moment where she realizes that's not who I want to be, and she even asks Obi-Wan when she brings Luke back, like, am I becoming him?
Right.
Which was kind of this beautiful, insightful moment. And I love that redemptive arc of her storyline. The only thing I didn't like about it is they've been calling this a limited series. Like it's just going to be 6 episodes and maybe we're done. Yeah. And I was like, you just got Reva to this point. I want to know so much more. So I do wonder, do you think this is the end? Do you think that we don't get any more Obi-Wans?
I don't know. I think it did relatively well critically and pretty well, I think, in terms of audience and viewership, especially the first few episodes. I would like to see more. I think it'd be fun to see more, but I also think they left it in a place that was emotionally satisfying, where if we don't get any more, it did something that was emotionally satisfying. I think it helped, us come to terms with some of the things that happened in the prequels. And as you know, it's not like those were critical or Star Wars fans' darlings. They were, and so I think it did do a good job of connecting that to, the beloved original trilogy. And I think it also did something emotionally satisfying in having Ewan McGregor come back and having James Earl Jones voice Darth Vader one more time. He's getting up there in years. Who knows if he's ever going to be able to do that again. So I feel like it gave us some closure, as well as getting to see, the kids in Luke and Leia in their development stage, especially Leia. So I would like to see another one, but I'm okay if we don't. I feel like I got what I wanted out. How about you? What do you think?
I think they're going to. For instance, there's been several interviews with the actors and the director who all say they'd be interested, that they would do it. The head of Star Wars has now said, of the whole group, has now said that she would be okay with seeing that happen. And then the last, so we start with Obi-Wan wanting to see Qui-Gon, but never he won't come to him. He won't appear. And we end with Qui-Gon Jinn appearing. And the last thing he says to Anakin is, "Come on, we've got a ways to go." That just sounds like a setup for the next thing.
What's coming next?
And maybe I just want it to be so badly that I'm trying to make it be that. But I don't know. I have this. I think it might be an extra year, not next year, but the following year that we might see this. But I just feel like we might get to see this again. But now, one thing that we didn't mention, and I know we're about to wrap up this segment, that I really liked. You and I talked about the first 2 episodes. Matter of fact, we named our show Obi-Wan, It's a Trap, because it was all a trap to get him. I loved how they turned that around in the last episode, and he's actually recognizes that Reva's after Darth Vader, and he kind of gives himself up, and she's standing there over him, and he says, talking about Darth Vader, "You're not bringing him to me. I'm bringing him to you." I was like, it's a trap.
It's a trap. It's a trap. Aptly named. that was very aptly named.
I thought I really liked that turn that they did there. It was nice.
Yeah. Here's one other question, Mark, because I want to know why. One thing I'm not sure why is why didn't Darth Vader kill Reva? I mean, why did he leave her? I get why Obi-Wan didn't kill Darth Vader whenever he had the chance, but why didn't Darth Vader kill Reva?
I wonder if, because George Lucas likes to say that best storytelling rhymes. It's like poetry, it rhymes. And Darth Vader stabbing her, he stabbed her almost exactly where she stabbed the Grand Inquisitor. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder if it was supposed to be some kind of beautiful poetry of, you thought you ended him by stabbing him like this, but I will end you by stabbing you like this. I wonder if it was kind of that was the idea behind it. It could have been sold a little better in some way, but the Grand Inquisitor, the old former Grand Inquisitor, was standing there as it happened. So maybe that was supposed to give us that feel of maybe, but then we knew she was going to come back, because that was one of our other questions. Is the Grand Inquisitor really dead? And the answer was no, he is not.
He's not.
You and I could geek out and geek out and geek out, but we want to get on to the meat of this show. So let's take a drop and come back to our next segment.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We are moving into our Theopolitico segment of this show, where we're talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so I want to go theological here, Mark. A lot of times I go kind of political first, but sure. I've got a theological question for you. And it has to do with the part of the show that you named just a few moments ago, when Qui-Gon Jinn is come back. And Obi-Wan is wondering why he hasn't seen him sooner. Okay, and Qui-Gon says this, and by the way, seeing Liam Neeson return as Qui-Gon Jinn, one of my favorite moments of this, and the fact that they waited until the very end, loved it. But he says this, he says, "I was always here, Obi-Wan, you just were not ready to see." And so I thought, whoa, okay, that's a profound moment. And then he talks about, we've got so much ahead, right? It's not the beginning. So foreshadowing maybe. But here's what my question about theological. Is it true that for some theological notions, we don't understand things until we're ready? Is it possible that, that we're just not ready to talk about some types of theology until we reach a certain point in our journey? Do you have any insight into that, Mark?
Well, I mean, I think it is very true, and it's just part of our nature of human beings. My theology professor used to talk about the first naivete, where we think we know everything, and then you go through the desert, and then there's this, and you come out after suffering, and you're ready to learn the new things, and you enter into the second naivete, and there's this kind of pattern that we go through where life has to happen, and experiences have to happen, good and bad, before we have all the equipment and tools we need to understand certain things. That someone can preach a reality to us as hard as they want, but if we're not yet at a place in life to hear it, we probably aren't going to hear it. And I've seen that over and over again. I mean, what's your take on that? What do you see that happening as well, or?
I think so, and I love that. And whenever you were talking about, the first naivete, the second naivete, I was thinking about Marcus Borg and his meeting Jesus again for the first time, and he talks about that at length, like pre-critical naivete that we just accept because someone that we know and trust has told us, like when we're kids, and we believe, say, in the resurrection because someone has told us that. And then we go into critical thinking, and we think about, we break things down and we say, hey, what this person has told us isn't compatible with what I know to be true about the world that I'm learning in science class and all that. Yeah. And can miracles really have happened? That doesn't jive with what I know about science. And then he says that once we go through that, we go into post-critical naivete, and that we then begin rebuilding. And so I was thinking about it in terms of the post-critical naivete, where like there have been points in my life where I wasn't ready to accept elements about faith until I had entered like the rebuilding stage and been like, okay, I've broken down all these stages of faith, and is there anything that I can accept? And so I thought that was beautiful, that there's some things that we're really not ready to grapple with until we've reached a certain point in our journey. And then, one of the things I love about progressive Christianity is then that, we might then shed those things at another point in our journey.
Yeah,
it's like
I would expect
like a walk. Yeah,
I would expect so. My personal statement of faith says, I won't quote it perfectly, but basically, if your statement of faith isn't constantly changing, you're not taking it seriously enough. It should never end up in a place where you've got it and this is it. If it ever does, you're not taking it seriously enough.
So like if like the static face, like the people who want to demand all the answers, I want to know exactly what to think about that. Are you saying that is not true faith in a way that like constantly questioning things is?
Well, I would say it is. I mean, is it? I mean, faith has within the word a bit of the concept of risk, does it not? Having faith means taking a chance, risking. Knowing the answer and believing the answer doesn't feel like it's taking much of a chance or risking much of anything. Understanding that as I get new data, that what I thought, this thing that's central and core and important to me, that if I get new data, I am willing to let that be deconstructed and then reconstructed and try to figure out what that means to me now. For me, that's the more faithful, the more risky move, is it not? That's real faith and how I would like to understand faith.
I think you're right. It's risky, but it's also incredibly rewarding, right? Whenever you have a faith that because I think a lot of times if we're holding fast to like creeds and beliefs and stuff, that a lot of times in our heart of hearts, maybe we don't really believe that stuff. And so it kind of feels inauthentic to say it because we are all, living in this postmodern world, and we know about the scientific method and we know all this stuff. And so being able to let go of that stuff, I think is incredibly freeing. But I think it can also, for those of us who are progressive, I've also found myself at certain points in my life saying, hey, I want to establish my theology. I want, I don't want to do the orthodox theology. I don't want any of that. I don't want any creeds, any of that stuff. But I want to establish my theology. I want to know what it is. But then I found, that it can be hard to then question my own theology, right? To like, once I've established it, to be like, oh, and I'm in a different place right now, and I gotta let that go, even though that was so important to me, a couple of years ago. That now I think I've moved past that. I think you're right. It's risky, but it's rewarding. It's really
it absolutely is. It absolutely is. One of the things I was curious about that's kind of related to faith and life in general, maybe more philosophical, I don't know, but it definitely fits in this segment of our show, was two kind of thoughts. The final fight between Obi-Wan and Darth. We see it's a fight full of rage and anger, even grief on Obi-Wan's side, I think. But we've seen consistently Anakin Darth is just an angry character, like crazy angry character. And he's kind of the iconic, he and Obi-Wan are kind of the pieces that carry throughout everything. What is it that you think Star Wars is trying to say about anger? It is clearly very important to this storytelling that this one character is kind of the embodiment of anger.
Yeah. That it's toxic. I mean, I think it's I think it's kind of wonderfully symbolic that even the Emperor Palpatine, says to Anakin, like, are you sure that you're okay? Are you sure that you're not just being driven by revenge on Obi-Wan? Right? He's wondering if he even can be a Sith Lord, right? Because he's so
Right.
driven by this anger. And like, if you're at the point where you're maybe too angry to be a Sith Lord, like that's bad. That's
Right.
really bad.
You've
right?
gone way off the deep end. Yeah.
You've gone way off the deep end. Yeah. So I think it's talking about like our obsession with anger, and that's really reflective of where we are as a country right now, right? Because
Absolutely.
we're so polarized, and people are so angry. And I mean,
Indeed.
I felt like that too, right? It's
Yeah.
hard not to give into this anger, being
Yeah.
consumed by this us them kind of thing.
Yeah,
Have
and
you seen that?
I have, and I think that,
Yeah.
that part of what this last episode of this series did plays right into what you're talking about. We do have this divide, and there was something that I noticed. I thought of the quote from Yoda, who says, "Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering." So we have Darth Vader, who is basically suffering in his anger and his hate, and then Ben in this fight is not really winning. And Darth basically says your weakness is still there, and he buries him under rocks and debris and all of this. And while he's under there, he starts thinking about the past, and he hears Darth's voice or Anakin's voice and some of the arguments they had, kind of stuff. And he's trying to get out, and he can't get out. And he's trying to get out, and he can't get out. And it's when he starts thinking about these kids and the future that he comes back to the Force, the light side. He fully embodies it, becomes stronger than he ever has before. And I wonder if that's not an intentional message, that constantly thinking and living in the past makes it very easy to get angry and upset and to live in that and get stuck in those places. Where being hopeful about the possibilities of the future is a very way to ultimately be hopeful, is to think of the future. And is that not part of what we have going on in our nation, is that there's a whole group of folks who are idolizing the past and tend to come off very angry folks about lots of different things. And then there's a whole group of folks who are just trying to vision a hopeful future that's more out of equality and love and that kind of thing. It does seem to parallel the Star Wars message, I think.
I love that. I think that's incredibly insightful. You know, are we going to get stuck in the past? Or are we going to see the past with rose-colored glasses and imagine a past that actually never even existed, right? Or are we going to try and envision a hopeful future and work towards it? And I think ultimately that's kind of what Jesus was talking about too, right? As he was talking about the reign of God on earth, a vision of the future that's hopeful. So I love Star Wars, Mark, and there is so much to unpack that's theological and political. I mean, we didn't even get to talk about the Empire, but it's wonderful. But you know what, Mark, we have to try to make each other look stupid. It's
only right. It's only right.
It's only right. It's a part of what we do. So how about this? Let's listen to the drop. Let's come back and let's try and make each other look stupid.
Oh yeah. Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We are entering into our segment of Make Me Look Stupid. And Caleb, I usually try to be the benevolent host at this point and give you a choice. This time I'm not doing so. I am going to take the first question.
Okay, take it.
I'm going
to
do a little setup to this. So you asked the question the first time we were talking about this, whether or not this series had the chance to redeem the original, the prequel trilogy. All right. And I'm not even going to talk about our answers to that. I'm just going to say that was a question you had. Okay. And then in this show, we have Reva, who goes through a kind of redemptive arc in her storyline. My question to you is much bigger than Star Wars, but it's connected to those. Is full redemption ever really possible?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting theological question, and it's something that, like, I think a lot of people really want to know. And
Yeah.
when they come
Oh, yeah.
into churches, like, okay, I've done a lot of things in the past, and is there any way that I can make right those things? And I get a lot of folks who come to my church who say, you know what, I've had a lot of things that I've done. I've been away from religion. I've been away from God, and I've done a lot of things that I feel guilty about. How do I deal with that? And I think redemption is an interesting thing, because we all have those things in our past, and
Right.
that we may feel bad about. And I
Mhm.
mean, sometimes people feel bad about things that really they shouldn't even feel that bad about. I
Right.
feel like one of my main jobs as a clergy person is telling people that a lot of the stuff they're feeling bad about, they really
They
don't
really
need to
don't
feel
need
bad
to.
about. Like, because people, I really think people, for the most part, are fundamentally good, and
Yeah.
a lot of the things that people feel bad about are things that other people have tried to make them feel
Yeah.
bad about.
Right.
And so I think that people, then when they hear that, when people hear that they are fundamentally good, that it helps them to live into this life where they feel loved and affirmed. And so
Mm.
I think that there are I think that for most people, that trying to live the best life we can is redemption enough, is
Mm.
what we need. Now, if you want to take it to the extreme, Mark, and you want to talk about, say, let's take, say, Hitler, right? Because
Ah.
he's the ultimate example, right? This is what
Yes,
you
sir.
always do. You say, how about someone who's committed mass atrocities like
Right.
Hitler? Is he able to experience redemption?
Right.
Well, that's a question that I think we just really can't know. Like, it's beyond our knowledge. I'm not someone who believes in a hell, or even much of an afterlife. That's
Right.
not really something that I believe in. It doesn't seem
Mhm.
like he experienced any of that redemption in his life.
Right.
It doesn't seem like he had any change of heart. But is it possible for people to experience some sort of redemption? I think so. Is it possible for someone who's done so many bad things to experience full redemption? I think that's unlikely, that person is
Yeah.
going to have such a turnaround that they experience full redemption. Did this series redeem some of the prequels? I think it helped.
Yeah. It definitely
did
did. It
it? Did
definitely
they
did.
experience full redemption? I don't think so.
Definitely not.
Well, I
You
don't
st
know. I'm
you st you
interested.
st
You
Yeah.
asked this
Go ahead.
question, Mark. I want to
Okay.
know. I want to know if you think it's possible. I want to know what
Um,
your take on redemption is.
I think it's complicated because there's different types of redemption, but we're just talking about personal redemption, a person. I think it's certainly possible, and it comes kind of close to some of the stuff that my take, kind of close to some of the stuff that you were saying about when you try to tell people there's some stuff that you shouldn't be feeling bad about. I think full redemption is probably not ever possible because of how we're wired as humans. But I think you can have a fairly complete redemption, but only once you are willing to forgive yourself for your past.
Hmm. Hmm.
Other folks can forgive you. Your
Yeah.
actions can be redeemed by other actions that make things better.
Right.
But you can't be fully redeemed until you're genuinely willing to forgive yourself for that past.
Hmm.
And even then, I don't think it's full, but I think the more you can forgive yourself, the closer it comes to full.
Yeah. What an important distinction. Forgiving yourself is maybe one of the hardest things, and
I think it is.
it harder than forgiving other people a lot of
Mhm.
times, because we sit with that anger for a
Yeah.
while. But I think it's even easier to recognize, like, the toxicity of the anger when it's directed outward. And it
Mhm.
takes a lot of work, I think, to recognize the toxicity of the anger when it's directed at yourself.
Right.
And I think that's one of
It's
the most important things that, like, Jesus said whenever he said, love your neighbor as yourself. That,
right.
like, that involves loving yourself, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
you can't really fully love your neighbor unless you've loved yourself. as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think part of the reason it's so hard to forgive ourselves is that, unlike with other people, we fully understand the motivation of why we did those actions. And that can make it even more difficult because you're not just forgiving an action, you're forgiving a true emotional response. With another person and motivation. With another person, you don't know what the real emotion is. You don't really know what their emotion behind the action is. So you can forgive the action. That's a lot easier than understanding fully why you went there and did that, whatever they are, and having to not just what it was, but why you did it. That is really difficult, but really important.
I love that. That's deep, Mark, and I think that's and it's
I get deep every now and then.
I know. That's deep, and it's theological, and that gets to I think the heart of why a lot of folks end up hopefully seeking comfort from religion. I hope that's what it ends up providing. Okay, here's my question for you. So one of the things that I noticed was that kind of the path of the Jedi was called exactly that. It was called the path or the way. And you may know another movement that was called the Way, and I want to know what do you think? What do you think was happening there? Was this an explicit Christian parallel to tie the Jedi path to the Way, or was this just happy coincidence for theologians to be able to draw on for Star Wars? What do you think?
Well, I mean, George Lucas has said clearly that he's pulled from religions to create Star Wars, but I don't think the Way was necessarily specifically from Christianity, although I'm sure he was aware of the people of the Way and that. But I think it has more to do that religion is almost always looked at as a path that we are on, that it's a journey we are traveling. And so the Way fits in perfectly with that. And so I think he just took kind of some Joseph Campbell kind of hero's journey kind of stuff and packed in different types of religions. And I think that's where more of the Joseph Campbell hero's journey kind of language going on, because Luke is kind of one of those types of heroes that Campbell talks about. So for me, it's just great for us Christian theologians, but we also do it a disservice if we try to make it say, "Oh, they pulled from Christianity." No, Christianity pulled from all these other religions, just like all these other religions also pulled from, and we end up with these stories that sometimes have some, well, like Lucas would say, rhyming poetry in them.
You know, one of the beautiful rhyming poetry that I love of world religions is the fact that early Christianity was called the Way, and that the Tao is the Way, right? And it's this cosmic force that runs through our lives. And one of the things that's really informed my theology has been the study of Taoism and this thought that there is this cosmic force that is running through life, right? And if we're open to it and we allow ourselves to experience it, then it can influence our lives. And that notion of the Way maybe has informed my theology more than any seminary class ever did. You know, than pulling apart the writing of the church fathers. That didn't do anything for me. But studying this notion that God is running through our lives, and that if we're open to experiencing God, then we can experience this love in our lives and in relationships, I think has been very meaningful. So I love the thought of the Way, and I love the way that you put that as this kind of poetry that mirrors
it rhymes with others. Mirrors. That's not mine. That's George Lucas. I stole completely from George Lucas. And if you want to steal from somebody, steal from George Lucas.
George, see, I was trying to give it to. I was trying to come up with a word. I'm like, was it mirrors? Was it rhymes? What was it? Whatever it was beautiful. I love it.
Yes,
George Lucas.
Fantastic. Well, I think that makes for a good show. And with that, I'm going to let folks know our next show will be on a new series that's been released to Amazon Prime. It's called Paper Girls. I'll read their quick little description. 4 young friends, paper routes, are disrupted on Hell Day 1988 when they unknowingly time travel to 2019. While searching for a way home, they clash with members of 2 time-jumping factions of war and must come face-to-face with their adult selves and learn how to work together to save the world. Tell you what, is that not a great setup? Why don't you want to watch this? I don't understand why you
I want to watch it. I can't wait. 80s nostalgia, meeting your future self. I am
all about it.
in. I can't wait.
All right. Me too. Well, thank you all for joining us for the Moonshine Jesus Show. We hope you'll join us again next week at this same time, same station. Cheers to you, Caleb.
Cheers,
and you know what I'm going to say? It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Moonshine Jesus.